Timing and positioning, hand path, arm action. Again, I've done a lot of videos on the importance of like the positioning of the hand, the elbow, and the shoulder at the timing in which you can anchor down. Now, there's a couple discrepancies, I'll say, in regards to like, all right, well, what is suboptimal? What is optimal in relation to front foot? I'm in the space of really being attentive to full front foot contact. This is what I call like anchor point into the ground, because I think this is when we're at the most stable point in our throwing mechanics. Okay. So this is kind of where I look at for guys, just to give you like an example especially with like Lynn over here on the right. You know, if we were to take him at like just front foot contact, right? Like you can make an argument that he's at front foot contact right here, and you can see his arm action mechanics. Now we can also have the conversation, well, Lynn is a Tommy John guy, and you can say that this positioning of his arm as he's making contact with the front foot is suboptimal, because you can see that the elbow is basically above, depending on the video, right? The elbow is basically a little bit above and in line with the ball at the time in which his front foot is initially touching the ground. Now, I'm not going to look at it like that, but there could be a conversation to be had. I look at guys at full anchor point. Usually, you know, especially if they're wearing shorts and a bullpen, you can see like the actual calf muscles being contracted in their lead leg. That shows that they're taking on the brunt force of, you know, the lead leg block. So this is kind of where I'm just going to look at it. You can look at it essentially both ways, really, but just looking at it here doesn't need to be over complex. Just I look at equal opposite. Okay, we're becoming biomechanically, if that's a word. I think it's biomechanical. Biomechanically efficient in terms of you know, the equal opposite. Glove side is going to dictate what the arm is going to actually end up doing, and we're going to be looking at the hand posture. I really like Musgrove where he is at full front foot strike with his hand, elbow, shoulder. You can see that the elbow is a little bit underneath the shoulder for both arms and the hand. And if we had like a broadcast view, you can actually see the up and down angle of the hand and the elbow, because typically you would look at it like powerful is probably a 45-degree angle. But both guys doing an extremely good job. I mean, obviously they log a lot of innings per year, especially, you know, Lynn, really consistent. Joe Musgrove, same thing, really. Hand up, elbow in line, shoulder looking equal opposite with the glove side. Timing and positioning is gonna really determine, because there's a lot of components you can go with this. You know, if we have our hand come up, right? If we have our hand come up at some point early in this dry phase, because I just did a post on this about like 12U mechanics. You know, when we were in Little League, we were taught as soon as like we start going forward with our body into our dry phase, essentially, like take the ball out of your glove and point it to second base. Like, you remember when we when we were taught that? So there's this dynamic that I actually believe this whole take the ball out early, and although I understand why we could teach that because of timing, like everyone fears being late, arm drag, you know, putting excess load on the elbow. But what we don't realize in doing this is actually early hand raise is going to initiate, in my personal opinion, early trunk rotation, because it's hard to stabilize your torso's posture if your hand is like above your shoulder already. It's really hard to keep a neutral trunk. You think of Kyle Hendricks, might be the only one in the big leagues. Seth Maness. I'm trying to think of guys who are exaggerate, like getting the hand out and having it up, but can still keep the trunk neutral until point of anchor. All right. So that's kind of my thing on being super early with your hand. I just think it initiates your trunk rotation early, which then what, right? It actually forces your arm to do more because of your limited amount of torque, your limited amount of rotational energy to pull the arm through. You end up actually, you'll see a lot of screenings from my end on early leads to pushy. So early arm raise actually leads to pushy. And then obviously there's the fine line of like being late, right? Being late with your hand. So your body's going at one tempo, down the mound, and your hand could be back here, could be dragging, a lot of spaces to cover. And then by the time you do anchor down with that front foot, your hand has to play, catch up into the slot, which is going to lead to inconsistency with your release point, inconsistency obviously with your command velo and so on and so forth. But within timing and positioning, the thing that I look at if you watch just a lot of commonalities of big leaguers, the hand, this is just kind of a really good starting point, pretty advanced actually. The hand climb, when the knee shoots down, it's actually when the hips are initiating their rotation. This is my dynamic on retract and rotate. So you can see it here, right? Like both of these guys do a good job of their drive leg mechanics. And then as soon as their hips are going to initiate rotation, the hand goes up, right? You see how that works? And I just think that's a really good place to start in terms of understanding this timing mechanism. Because that's going to get you to be, in my opinion, on time with when your hand comes up. And because again, we're essentially, this energy is going to be coming up. We talked about in the lead leg block mechanics chapter, when the energy comes up, we want to position our hand and our arm in such a way that now we can fully receive all of this energy. We can absorb all of this energy from the ground and have that available when our arm comes into our release slot. Okay. So there's a whole lot to unpack in regards to like the arm action, but at the end of the day, I think the goal is to just be able to position accordingly in such a way that best allows you to leverage the arm, and basically means allow your body to take as much force and load off the arm as possible. Because, if you're early, you're going to push, and that's going to generate independent energy with the arm. You have to make up for lost energy because of a timing disconnect. If you're late, right, if your arm's dragging, then you're going to have to generate independent energy with your arm to make up for that leaking of timing with the transfer. All right. So if you were to front foot, anchor point here and your hands here, now you have to generate independent energy with that hand because of the timing disconnect of the energy all coming up through the chain, right? There's that little piece, there's that window of opportunity to fully absorb. And we just need to position in such a way that now we can receive and utilize as much as possible. Now, obviously, we don't live in a perfect world. These things aren't going to happen, but we can get as close as possible to all of these things. And again, when it comes down to the goal is like segment as much as you can so we can pull the arm through. We'll have some more video context on that, what that looks like and so on.